Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ruminate This with Agrarian Solutions. Join us as we explore ruminant nutrition and the impact of mycotoxins. Here, we challenge your curiosity and explore new industry insights and research to optimize your herd's health and performance. All right. Hey, welcome, everybody, to another episode of Ruminate This with Agrarian Solutions. I'm your host, Scott Zehr. And today I am joined by my partner in crime at Agrarian Solutions, the one, the only Caroline Knoblock. She is the Director of Nutrition here at Agrarian. YDLI class alumni, same as me. Go YDLI 12. Caroline, I'm glad you took time out of your day to join us again.
I'm happy to be here and talk with you.
All right. You know, I feel like you get the short end of the stick working with me a little bit because I'll get a chance to go out on farm with a nutritionist. We'll talk shop, we'll talk repro, we'll talk mycotoxins, and then I'll say, hey, how about I pull it back up and we'll look at the records and try to come up with some ideas for you, which is something that I had done for years in my previous role with the previous company. But you're the one that has Dairy Comp 305. So then I send you the backups and say, Carolyn, do this for me, do this for me. Am I being fair enough to you? Is that okay?
Well, I mean, sometimes you don't give me much info. You're like, let me know what you find, which
Well, I want you to look at it with an
difficult.
unbiased. Yeah, fair. All right,
No,
fine.
I'm just teasing. No, I understand. It's good to come in and try to look because, yeah, you were told what everyone on the farm thinks, and that's not necessarily what the issue actually is.
Isn't that the truth? You know, I
We've
mean,
had that happen a few times recently. So,
yeah, we talk a lot about repro in Agrarian, and rightly so, right? I love asking the question to dairy farmers, and it's amazing how often they get it wrong. But like, why do you put up crops? Well, to feed the cows. Yeah, but why do you feed the cows? Well, to make milk. But why do you make milk? Well, to make a living. Wrong, wrong, wrong. We put up crops to make pregnancies. We feed cows to make pregnancies. We can't milk a cow until she becomes pregnant and has a calf, right? So it all starts with a pregnancy. And I think that's why it's such a big topic of conversation with us. And reproductive efficiency, at least in my opinion, Caroline, it drives farm profitability as much as anything, right? I mean, if we have open cows, we have low producing cows. High days in milk, it's like the old saying, like trying to get milk out of a stone. And so that's why we've, put a lot of emphasis on that. Caroline, is it fair to say though that like farms have gotten better at getting cows pregnant?
for sure. And a lot of it is linked to just the off-sync programs and resync and all of that is getting the cows cycling normally and yeah, getting them pregnant. And I mean, I come at it from a nutritionist perspective because I'm a trained nutritionist. Never been involved with repro. And so I always kind of like, don't talk to me about repro. It's not my ballpark. I don't have anything to do with it. But now as I've been at Agrarian and we do put an emphasis on it just because of our products and what we help with. And I'm learning more how we influence it with feed and what's in the feed and how we can manage that. And so I've been doing a lot of reading on repro and just learning about it from being from someone who said absolutely not for years. It's been very eye-opening to understand how we've shifted as an industry to get better with our preg rates over the last 15, 20 years.
100%. And I don't think we've seen the end of it. I think the herds that are running 50, 55, 60% first service conception rate, I don't think that's the peak of the mountain, Caroline. And I say that because you look at how we've gotten here, right? We've gotten here with a focus, as you said, on transition health for sure, and then sound protocols, sound heat detection methods, like activity monitoring, that sort of thing, and quality people, quality semen going in the cow, all these things. But, we talked recently internally how, well, it was at Four States Nutrition Conference. They were talking about there was cows that were given or herds that were given awards for being part of the 8-pound component club. Just a few years ago, we were giving out awards for 6 pounds, not that long ago, right? And so just like I think there's, 8 pounds is going to be the new standard soon, and 9 pounds will be on the horizon. Can we achieve 70, 75, dare I say 80% for service conception rate in these cows? I mean, what if we could? What would it look like?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because part of what I'm reading is just trying to understand, just the reproductive cycle of a cow, but also, are they not getting pregnant? What are the reasons they're not getting pregnant? It's because they're not cycling, or are they getting pregnant and there's early loss? Is there later loss? Where is that pregnancy loss happening? And so that's been quite eye-opening, especially in the last few years. Just some really good work coming out about that early pregnancy establishment period, and what's going on for that cow, and how do you understand which cows successfully maintain their pregnancy and which don't. And that's probably where it's coming from, because to jump the gun a little, it looks like a lot of cows get pregnant. It's just they don't stay pregnant. Fertilization rates are
Exactly.
super high. Like, if you can, it's hard to tell if a cow is pregnant that first 10 days after AI, but the ways when they do that, most are. A lot are. I'd say in the over 70%. It depends on the paper you read, and I don't have the perfect numbers, but a lot are. It's just then once you check it 35 days, they're not anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a
I've
period of
I've heard
time.
those numbers be as high as 75, 80% in the
Mm-hmm.
past. And right, it's that, and we all know this. So far, we haven't taught anybody something they don't know yet, right? But it's that window from 30 to 38 days, 40 days. That's the problem window. And, we've talked in the past to Dr. Jack Britt, the Britt hypothesis, right? Nutrients, not enough glucose to maintain pregnancy, like that whole thing. But you've also been looking at some papers out of South Dakota State and out of Guelph that's shedding some light around nutrients around that time, nutrient, I guess, availability. Is that right?
Well, it's more the impact of the uterine environment, I'd say. And it's actually going earlier. It's from day 19. So maternal recognition of pregnancy is in that, like, a repro person is going to say the exact day. It's day 17 to 19. It's super late in cattle compared to other mammals. And that's where you get a lot of losses. It's that embryo is just not able to make enough whatever of the hormones so that the dam knows that there's even a pregnancy to be maintained there. And so they're just not sending whatever hormones and nutrients they need into the uterus. And part of it's just because the uterus doesn't have the nutrients needed to support that embryo, and some of it is due to hormonal profile because of reproductive issues.
So, what are you seeing in the papers as cause and effect of this? How do we address it?
So the work that I'm referencing here, some was done at Guelph, then some was done by a professor that's now at Guelph. He did it when he was at University of Florida, around the states in the US. Then the guy who did it well at Guelph is now on staff at South Dakota State and continuing on with this work. So they're just doing retrospective analysis where they were able to be at commercial farms, take a bunch of ultrasound measurements, and one they did a bunch of blood testing, and they're just looking at those cows, and then afterwards they're also looking at all their health records. And they found really interesting things with health records, with healthy cows versus unhealthy cows, and with different diseases, different health status, and how that affected her ability to get pregnant, which not that much. Most have got pregnant, but her ability to be pregnant at that first ultrasound and still be pregnant at that second ultrasound. The main thing, it's uterine diseases. And for these studies, they're very specific how they define that. So it's going to be slightly different. On a lot of farms, metritis, RPs are 24 hours. Do they have placenta or not? Yes or no, there's an RP. Metritis, they're going to do the discharge. They're not palpating cows typically. For these studies, they do palpate the cows, and they take uterine samples and then look at that to see if it has certain types of immune cells. And then they're also very defined measurements, because it's a study, you have to have parameters. So the work is very consistent. They did a good job with what is a metritis case on these commercial farms. But yeah, it's uterine diseases is going to be number one. And it's just cows that even at day 13, they still had signs of metritis. And so It's cows that something was going on. They just could not cure their metritis. And then later on, they could not maintain that pregnancy. They either had early embryonic death or death in that, like you said, 30 to 38 day range. There's also other diseases too. So ketosis, there's some ketosis indicators for a certain time period of additional issues on top of the metritis. But it's coming down to just health. Is she having to mount a big immune response, have a lot of inflammation, and is she able to resolve her issues as well? Because
Um,
there's other things you read. There's some cows that might get mildly metritic, but they cure their metritis and they are fine. But the ones who have that carried on, who just can't cure it for weeks, those are the cows who just struggle. And so it's what always comes to my mind is what can we do early on just so they don't struggle as much, so they can kind of take care of this inflammatory load. Yeah, take care of this inflammation and solve their issues.
I think everything you just described there, right? It sounds like we're coming back to inflammation, right?
Mhm.
You mentioned ketosis, you mentioned metritis. Metritis causes inflammation. Ketosis, we kind of think now is more along the lines of a secondary kind of thing from inflammation.
Mhm.
And so really, it sounds like a continuation of that story we've been talking about here at Agrarian is how do we alleviate all these sources or mitigate all these sources of inflammation, whether it's heat stress, mycotoxins, metritis, lameness. What can we do? And I think what's cool to me, Caroline, is we know internally we have one of these inflammation sources checked off the box. Like we can take
Mhm.
mycotoxins off the table, right? But how do we help folks figure out how to deal with those other things?
Well, you got to start from just the beginning when she's calving in. And cows are going to experience inflammation issues. I mean, she's starting to make milk. That's just a huge draw of nutrients to the mammary gland. It's also a potential source of infection. When she's starting to get milked out, that teat end is now open and exposed. They have to mount a huge immune response to clean up everything out of their uterus after calving. That needs to happen. That's important. She has diet changes. She's eating new feeds. She's in different pens, different concentrate and forage ratios. It's probably totally different forages than before. That's where we come in with helping stop some of the mycotoxin issues, helping stop the inflammation from there. But there's a lot she has to take care of. And a lot of cows do it pretty well, but we still have those 30% that have some sort of struggle. Sometimes it's more. And it's how do we either reduce the amount of issues that she has to deal with? So we recommend feeding DTX when you have mycotoxins. So that helps her manage those mycotoxins much more efficiently. It's not that nutrient draw, it's preventing the leaky gut issues, the immune issues in the gut. But we still need to support her so that she can clean up her uterus after calving, so that she can protect her udder. And it's part of it's just getting cows to eat after calving. It's not overcrowding your fresh cows. It's a better diet transition where they still aren't going too crazy with the concentrate immediately, but depending on how you manage your cows, they can manage that just fine. It's just what can we do to prevent more things for her to have to manage and take care of. So it's a lot of management, reducing overcrowding, clean water. I mean, if she's drinking dirty water, it's just another thing she has to deal with. Clean
Exactly.
calving pens, clean, and it's just having clean hands when you process cows after calving, just so you're not introducing unneeded bacteria.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, these cows are going through an awful lot.
I mean, the
So
plus side is cows are really cool animals. They're awesome animals. They can do this just fine. They're made to do this. They're made to have a calf and make milk.
yep.
So it's just if we do our best from a husbandry and management standpoint, they're going to take care of the rest. So, yeah, clean feed, clean hands, I guess, clean water.
We don't want to oversimplify it because there's a lot of nuances to it. But at the end of the day, I mean, if people have been listening to Ruminate This long enough, they've heard me reference Vince Lombardi and the fundamentals, right? It's a lot of the fundamentals. From a nutrition standpoint, do you think there's opportunities for us to look at like what we're feeding these cows, whether it's pre-fresh, post-fresh, first 30 days to improve pregnancy success there?
I think nutrition, it's playing the role in just helping more. I would think of it on the side of what problems is it either help prevent or solve. So from, again, the DTX perspective, controlling mycotoxins, helping her combat those much more efficiently and effectively. It's feeding high quality forages that are very highly digestible so that her rumen can do its thing. There's a lot around supplementing the proper amount of amino acids and different fatty acids and fats. And there's a lot of opportunities just to get good nutrition into her. But I mean, it comes down to also just having feed in front of the cows, encouraging intake in general. On the nutrition side, you can create the perfect diet, but it's really working with the farms and helping them feed that effectively, feed the diet you create. I mean, there's no one diet that you must feed, but it's a lot of diets can work if the farms are feeding consistent TMR. It's in front of the cows all day, every day, and they can reach it.
Yeah, execution, right?
Yep.
That's a big part of it. We started out today, Caroline, talking about like reproduction, how we spend a lot of time on reproduction here at Agrarian, which I think is kind of interesting in itself because we're a feed additive company, I guess you could say. But I have always said that I look at our job at Agrarian as being ones to help bridge the language gap or the understanding gap between genetics and nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that in mind, and one, I'm going to thank you for geeking out on reading papers and then explaining it to me so I don't actually have to read them. But from that mindset, what are a handful of takeaways or three takeaways you'd want to leave the audience today? Again, I'll preface this by saying, like, Repro has come a long way in the last, even just the last 10 years, right? I mean, 10 years ago, a 30 preg rate was like, oh, and now it's, yeah, we're running 30. I mean, we normally run, we see 40 preg rates, right? But the other side of that is I've run into too many farms recently that say, we got Repro, we don't need to think about Repro. What happens the first minute you take your eye off something?
Mm-hmm.
It disappears, right? So I guess from all of that, what are maybe a few takeaways you'd want to leave the audience with today?
I think a big one is what happens that first 14 days after calving will affect her reproduction in a few months' time. It's for service, and just that early pregnancy loss is very much connected to how she transitioned. So if there's anything that to focus on a lot of farms, even farms that are doing really well from a repro perspective, it's how can we reduce issues after calving? Because those cows that have metritis issues, those cows that have rumen upset issues and just aren't doing well those first few weeks, they don't maintain that first pregnancy. It just, their body just hasn't been able to repair their uterus enough yet because their immune system needed to fight other things and it needed to protect itself. So it comes back to how she transitions, and her ability to transition well really just comes to supplying the nutrients she needs to make milk and the nutrients her immune system desperately needs to protect itself. The cow's immune system knows what to do. It's just, it needs a lot of nutrients, and the cow also needs a lot of nutrients to make milk. And it's supplying what she needs so that she can take care of herself. That's the biggest takeaway to me. And when I was just reading all of this, it's like, oh, here's our connection right here. It's those first 2 weeks, whatever happened, you're still going to see it 2-3 months later.
I keep asking myself the question, I spent a couple of years of my career talking about shop protocols and reproductive management strategies around getting cows inseminated. I was in the genetic space with a semen company, right? And I think about how many technicians lost their job or semen companies lost their sale, if you would, because cows weren't getting pregnant. And so two parts of that, right? I'd like your input on this. There's really no way to answer it, but like, I just wonder now, like how many people got kicked out of an account because cows were open because of bad semen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or this guy forgot how to breed cows, or, but just the more we learn about this, it just, like you said, it comes back to let the cow be a cow, take good care of her. And, Caroline, I've said for a number of years now, like if you gave me a pool of money to invest in a repro program, like it would all be on first service. a big chunk of it. And it would start with the dry cow program. Like that's where I would start spending money, is with the dry cows.
Mhm.
And, it sounds like what you're saying is like, that's probably not a bad approach, and just transition care, transition care, transition care.
Mhm.
Cool.
No,
I,
exactly. I mean, if you're giving your shots on time and then, yeah, they're getting her bred at the right time, she's probably conceiving,
yeah.
likely. It's just,
And
yeah,
when
is
you,
she gonna get over that hump of that maternal
yeah.
recognition and maintain her pregnancy?
And when you run them through the first service sync protocol and come up with 40%, you can start by looking at your transition program.
Yeah, yep. If your shots
I
are done
love
on
it.
time, it's probably, yeah, their health
I love
aftercare.
it.
Hmm.
I love it. I think you've given everybody something to think about. And, stay tuned here too, folks, for continued conversation around getting cows pregnant and keeping them pregnant. I mean, that is how our dairy farmers in today's world remain in business and remain profitable. So, Caroline, again, thank you for taking time out of your day today to visit with us on Ruminate This. And we will be talking to everybody again soon. Thank you for listening to Ruminate This with Agrarian Solutions. Look for our next episode in 2 weeks.